You remember when the cryptocurrency craze started a few years back? Everyone from gamers to grandparents were rushing to invest in the crypto boom. Recently, Facebook has been making plans to jump on the blockchain bandwagon too. But the problem with investing in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other types of cryptocurrency is that it's not regulated like a bank. So could you imagine taking your entire life savings and investing it in digital dough? It sounds crazy, doesn't it? Well, my next guest did just that. He poured every last penny that his family had into Ethereum, and he lived to tell about it. And I'd like to extend a big Kim Komando Show welcome to Dan Conway. Hey, Dan, thanks for joining us. And now I have to start by asking, what did your wife say?
Well, that is, I wrote a book about all this that goes into more detail, Confessions of a Crypto Millionaire. And in one of the scenes of the book describes how after hundreds of hours of research, I became convinced that Ethereum was going to go up. Rightly or wrongly, that's where my brain was. And I walked down to my bank, Wells Fargo at the time. I walked in and I started the machines up, wiring the $100,000, and I felt my phone buzz. And I looked down and it was a note from my wife that said, "WTF is this?" So that was not a fun day or evening. And I kind of document how we talked about it. And we ultimately made a deal that allowed me to put the money in. She's never been particularly interested in money. She sort of thinks it's unholy. She has a fairly healthy perspective on money. And we made a deal that I document that allowed me eventually to put it in there. She kind of compartmentalized the whole thing after that.
You didn't discuss this with her first?
No, I did not. And that I do not recommend that for folks who are in a marriage. That is not a good idea. I convinced myself, since she doesn't really like to talk about money and I was in charge of our investments. We have, a 401k as well that's separate from this, not massive, but so I convinced myself, but I tried not to think too much about it, frankly, that, she wouldn't care about this. But yes, she did.
So how did you become an Ethereum expert?
Basically, my career up to that point was involved working in corporations and centralized corporations. And I was like a lot of people, it made me miserable. So when I came across Bitcoin, I was interested in the investment angle of it, and folks saying Bitcoins are going to be worth 50,000. I was fairly desperate at that point. So I had the incentive to learn about it. But when I learned about Ethereum, which focuses more on this concept of decentralization in relation to organization, I began to read the Reddits, YouTube videos, go to meetups, Twitter. I mean, I literally, when I want to go deep, I can go really deep. And I became convinced that maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but in the years and decades ahead, Ethereum not only would rise in value, but would sort of challenge this idea that a centralized corporation is the only way to add to and manage economic activity. I believed and still believe that that will happen to some degree in the years to come.
Okay, so you had the $100,000, and what did it turn into, and how long did it take to turn that into a sizable amount?
Well, it was a fairly, in one sense, a fairly miserable experience because, like I said, I made the big investment in May, and on my birthday on June 18th, one of the most high-profile Ethereum projects was hacked. It was called the Decentralized Autonomous Organization, the DAO. Ethereum crashed. All of crypto crashed. My Twitter blew up right as I was walking into the restaurant to have dinner with my wife and 3 kids, and we lost 40%, like almost immediately. But the thing is, Kim, is that I can't underestimate how into it I was. I had done so much research, and I had myself 100% convinced that while it was sad that it went down, it was more a buying opportunity.
Okay, is that when you took a home equity loan out?
Yes, that is when I truly jumped the shark. I took a home equity out, and it wouldn't necessarily have led to 100% economic collapse of my family, but that was definitely a possibility.
Okay, so you're 300 grand in the hole. And your wife, who's not into money, I'm sure at this point is saying kind of what's going on and what happens.
She didn't want to know anything about it after the initial investment. Like she said, she never thought we were going to get rich. But if I had told her like a month later, like, hey, you know what, that thing turned out to be like the World Wrestling Foundation, she said she wouldn't have been the least bit surprised.
I couldn't imagine that happening in my relationship with my husband. It'd be like, what did you just do? Are you crazy? Okay, but now you're the golden boy because In what, 4 months, this turns into how much?
We were up 2 million. And again, I didn't sort of figure out what the impact would be on Eileen. I said, I quit BitGo. We're up 2 million. We're fine. And she was really ticked off, to put it lightly. That's when I decided at about halfway through, we needed to sell some to get our initial investment out.
Where did you store it so it was protected from hackers?
Everyone said hold your own keys, and that involves holding your, like, it's 26 or 27 digits on a device that you own or written down somewhere. And if you hold those, like, say I'm a refugee, I can memorize that code. I can put it somewhere only I can get it, only know about it, and wherever I'm at, I can get onto a computer and get my crypto, right? But that scared the heck out of me. I knew that I was going to mistype a code and lose all the money, and then what would I do? So I always left mine on an exchange called Gemini, which is one of the big ones, and their whole focus is on security. They're run by the Winklevoss twins. I'm sure you're familiar with them, and so I feel comfortable holding it there.
And so, how much did you build it up to before you cashed it all out?
We ended up cashing out $13 million. About 4 or 5 days before it started to go down. And since then, it's been in this bear market. I believe it will boom again, but we've been in a bear market for 2 years now.
Well, you know what, Dan, thank you so much for sharing your story. And if you're thinking about investing in cryptocurrencies, you know what? Make sure you do your research, because for every story like Dan's, there are hundreds, maybe not thousands of others about people who just lost everything. And if you want to read more about Dan's story, Confessions of a Crypto Millionaire, you can find a link to it posted over at my website, and that's komando.com. Hey, thanks for watching. Now, a few things. Don't forget to click the like button and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And for more digital know-how, check out all these other great links.